we were shooting in Karama, and we were shooting on a beautiful cinema camera. There's a big crew around, and everyone's coming to me. They're coming to the director of photography. They're coming to the producer, and our lead actor is in his orange work overalls, and no one looks at him.
Hi Neel.
Hi.
How are you?
Well,
So first, thank you so much for taking time out to do this in this new chapter of Popcorn Pixel that we're calling Candid Conversations. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I came across your profile, and something that really stuck out was your latest film that is creating a lot of buzz, which is Beneath the Sea of Lights. And I just read a brief synopsis, and I was really drawn to it. I won't talk about it a lot, and I'm glad you're here because you created it. So I just wanted to understand from you, A, what was the inspiration behind it, and if you could tell me a little bit about the characters and how that came about.
Sure. What was the inspiration? I think, trying to sum it up, I used to work in advertising.
Okay.
I worked at some pretty good agencies. I was lucky to kind of work on a lot of brands as well over here in Dubai. And you see, there's so much advertising out here. When you drive down Sheikh Zayed Road, you see all these billboards. And unlike in a lot of other countries here, they're backlit. So you have people hanging off the boards and changing the bulbs behind them. And I always wondered, because I knew the advertising side of the story, but I didn't know about the people that actually put up these ads. How do they feel about the product? You know, if I drive past a perfume ad, I know it's not speaking to me. If I drive past a Ferrari ad, I also know, unfortunately, it's not speaking to me. What do these guys feel? How do they? I had a sense of pride and a sense of ownership over the brands that I used to work on. Do they feel the same way? And that's when we came up with the idea for the character, who was just a billboard repairman who wanted to try to experience the products on his billboards. That's really where it started.
Okay, and how about getting the cast on board?
The cast was actually a long process.
Okay.
We initially set out to do the film in Hindi.
Okay.
With a major, I don't want to say Bollywood, but a major Indian actor in the lead.
Okay.
And then when they came back, their schedules weren't working out. And honestly, I'm very impatient. I like to get things rolling. So my production partner, Umran, and I were thinking, well, maybe expand and maybe look at a demographic that isn't just India. I mean, obviously you've got 65% of the population here is South Asian, especially in that demographic, right, where you're looking at electricians and billboard repairmen. And we were thinking, well, what other ethnicities come to Dubai? What other ethnicities could we represent here? And could we make something that had more of an international appeal? And immediately we decided to make the actor, we considered making him an African instead of an Indian, or coming from Africa. And immediately Umar and I hit on the same person in our head, which was Barkha from Captain Phillips. And because he just seems very, you believe him, you know. If you have a famous Indian actor hanging off a billboard, there's a strong chance you're not going to buy into that character, right? And here, he looks the part. We were shooting in Karama, and we were shooting on a beautiful cinema camera. There's a big crew around, and everyone's coming to me. They're coming to the director of photography. They're coming to the producer, and our lead actor is in his orange work overalls, and no one looks at him.
Okay, that works, right? That tells you you're going in the right direction. Nice.
So,
what about Jim? How is
Jim was Jim's character. I think I was introduced to Jim through one of our associate producers, Megan, suggested him after she saw him in Nirja.
Okay.
And it was around the time that Padmavat was coming out, just before it came out. And I had a call with Jim, and I think back in December, and he had some interesting thoughts on the character. And immediately I knew it was somebody who cared. And for me, that's all I want. It's not about the look, it's not about what they've done before. It's about how much do you care about the character, because that's for me, that's directly
you invest enough in the film as well.
Exactly. And I want to know how invested you are, because the people that are working on the movie have been put everything into it.
That's true.
And whenever Jim and I spoke about the character, he would just come back with more and more interesting stuff. And so much of his character is, or what his character does, was not on the script.
Okay.
And
so it was improvised during the shoot?
During the course of the shoot, not necessarily on the spot. Sometimes there were some things he did where so I'm thinking, how much information can I give?
Okay.
There are some things he did where, before he even got to Dubai, he called me and he's like, listen, I know this is the point you're trying to make, and I thought I could do it visually instead, and here's how.
Okay.
It's something you have to see the film to watch, but
Okay.
it's very much. He came here as Jimmy, you know, his character's name is Jimmy, and that's what I kind of discussed with him. I said, I'm gonna tell you everything that I know about the character, and then you're going to work on that, and then whatever you bring to Dubai in terms of the character, that's what it is. I'm not the kind of person who's specific on dialogue. There's an entire, what he calls the bad guy speech that was cut out of the film, and I think, you know, for the right reasons.
Okay.
And he did the whole thing. He gave you everything with just a laugh and a phrase, and it was beautiful. It's right at the end of the movie, and I think he brought so much life to a character that if somebody else played it, you know, it might even feel familiar. But the way Jim does it is very, very unique.
That's good. Interesting. So coming to the entertainment industry in Dubai, I mean, I know it's a melting pot for not just cultures, but also all the industries are kind of growing right now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you have worked in India in a similar industry as well. How do you see that different from that of Dubai?
Unfortunately, I've never worked in India.
Okay.
Okay, I lie. I did one shoot.
Film,
I did one shoot.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah, I did one shoot in Bombay for a commercial. So I can only speak to that commercially.
Okay.
I think the volume of work that you have in India, versus anywhere else in the world, including the US and the UK, the volume of work is such that even people in a relatively junior position, when you say I've been in film for 3 years, in one country that could mean 20 shoots, and in another country that could mean 100. You know? And just the volume of work that India has, you have people work very quickly. They're very dedicated and they're very professional. They just have that much more experience. So it's not really about the years, and that also taught me that it's not about how long someone's been doing something, but how enthusiastically and how many times.
That's true.
I mean, I worked with a crew member in India he said I've only been in the industry for 2 years, but he's been God knows how many shoots in those 2 years.
So that's exactly what I meant, because in terms of volume, again, UAE, I would say, not just Dubai, is still very new in terms of how much you can explore, how much is being explored. Have you ever considered maybe moving to like a Mumbai, for example, because that is the hub of entertainment, and you are kind of making, I don't want to say Hindi films or Indian films, but that is the context of films, right? Like with the background of an Indian culture attached to it. So would you ever consider making a similar kind of content in India?
I wouldn't say I wouldn't make it in India.
Yeah.
I'd start with Dubai's home for me.
Okay.
I've lived here 26 years now. And I understand it in a way that I wouldn't understand India, for example. Or I wouldn't understand Canada or Sri Lanka or any of the other places I've lived. Yeah. The film, because our lead actor was Indian in the original script, it had a fair bit to do with India. But I think the issues that we tackled in the movie, even in the first draft, even when we had an Indian actor attached in the lead, they weren't really related to India. They were all Dubai-centric. All the issues that came here, you could have had a Pakistani lead actor, you could have had a Nigerian lead actor, you could have had a Kenyan. And that's why the script worked so well. So I wouldn't say that it was really related to India per se. For example, in this movie, there's an actor, Vinay, played by Jamil Khan, who's incredible. And he plays the driver, Barkad's driver. And he's come from India. And he's saving up for his daughter's dowry. And you kind of, the two characters have a bit of a discussion about that and why Jamil's here. Jamil's character is a foil to Barkad's. He's just come here to put his head down, do his work. He doesn't care about all the shiny stuff. Like most people that come here. And that's about as much as it gets in terms of India. Jim's character's nationality is never revealed. I don't think it's important. And I think that's one of the main statements in the film is that once you're here, you're here. Nationality is not really important. So I don't think that I know or understand enough about India to make a film about it. If there's a specific issue, like I'm adopted from Mother Teresa's home in Calcutta, I feel that maybe when I have a better understanding of it myself, I could make a film or a documentary about adoption. But about India, having never lived there, I think it would be very presumptuous for me to think that my opinion had
Fair enough.
anything.
Yeah, fair enough.
And in relation to moving out of Dubai, moving to another place, we're working on the next movie.
Okay.
It's nothing to do with modern days, nothing to do with the Middle East, but I would still base it out of here. Like I said, it's home for me, and I think the production partners that we have here, the resources that we have here, most of your film isn't about the shoot; it's about the work before and after. Yeah. And yeah, it's a very nascent kind of industry, but we found amazing editors, we found amazing camera crew, we found amazing producers here, and yeah, they've never made a movie before, but neither have I. So who am I to kind of say anything about that? And I think everybody who's worked on the film and is continuing to work on the film as we speak is kind of learning as we go.
Is this another film or the same one?
No, the same film.
Okay.
So I think I wouldn't really look outside. I would definitely look outside for cast, for our lead actors. But I think there's enough to choose from over here. It's just it depends how hard you want to look and what kind of risk you want to take.
So coming to your previous work, I came across one, I think, short film that you had made called Security.
Yes.
If you want to elaborate on the synopsis.
Yeah, sure. Security is about an Indian security guard and a Pakistani who are guarding an empty construction lot in the desert, in the Dubai desert. And it's the Indian's first day out of India, and he's never met a Pakistani before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So for me, that was very. I would never make a movie like that again. It's not entertaining. I just did it for me and my production partner. It was just a story that we did for us. I had two security guards near the compound where I used to live, and they would tell me their stories and where they came from. And one was Nepali, one was Indian, there was a Pakistani supervisor. And you kind of see, I noticed it was very interesting when Indians go to Canada, or the US or anywhere else, they kind of go abroad. They kind of find pockets.
Yeah.
Somalis do that too.
Yeah. I think every ethnicity they just feel comfortable with their own people.
When you come here, it's for some reason it's very different. Everybody's in everybody's face, and you see Indians and Pakistanis blending a lot more here than anywhere else. Yeah. I thought that's a beautiful thing to say about
that. That is very specific to the Middle East that I've noticed as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, my Indian character comes here and he's got all these, preconceived notions about what a Pakistani is. He doesn't even realize that the Pakistani is a Pakistani until he says it.
Because he looks brown.
Yeah.
So,
and he just happens to speak Urdu very well, as far as our Indian guy is concerned. And I think the Pakistani's been in Dubai for a lot longer, and he's seen this happen. And presumably he came here with the same prejudices. But the city kind of helped him get over them. That's what the film's about. It's very simple. It was we didn't have budget for locations and cast. I used my lighting assistant as the Pakistani. He's ex-military, like his character, and my production partner's cousin from Bombay and they both never acted in the film before. Okay. We just worked with them, and I think the performances were very natural.
So that actually brings me to another point. Is I know you've already mentioned that you made it for yourself or your friends or whatever. I think I read it somewhere that you had mentioned that it's a slow-paced film, and you weren't really expecting critics to even give it a second thought.
I didn't expect people to even watch it.
So what is your mindset when you're actually making a film? Are you targeting it for a specific audience, or what is your vision essentially for any project that you work on?
I never have a specific audience. Okay. I think every film, even a documentary, has a responsibility to be entertaining. And I think even some of the most informative films or cinema that has changed my perspective on life or on a particular position, the best examples have been entertaining and informative. And I think you can do both. It's just really hard.
Yeah.
So Security, I didn't set out to make it entertaining at all. I set out to figure, well, can I tell a story? Can Imran and I shoot it and put it together and edit it? Because we did everything ourselves. I think we had 5 people on set, including the 2 actors and me and Imran. And it was an experiment more than anything. But I think, like for example, Beneath the Sea of Lights, it says quite a lot, but it's also very, very, you learn a lot. If you want, it's there for you.
Take away a lot from the film, I guess.
Right. One of my favorite examples of a movie where you learn something and you're entertained is Gravity. Gravity is about letting go of trauma. She loses her spoilers. She loses her child earlier in her life, in the character's life, and so she's cut herself off from the world, very literally. And the physical journey of her getting back to the world kind of mirrors the emotional journey as well. And I learned a lot about pain in that film, even though it's a sci-fi blockbuster. If you don't want to read it, if you don't want to look into it, if you just want to,
just
sit with your dog and
kick
your shoes off, and just have some popcorn, watch the movie, it's amazing. But if you want to look for more, it's there. And that's what I kind of aspire to. Create something entertaining, but there's something more to it there if you want to catch it.
But then you just said that you want to create something entertaining, and that is the crux of where you actually, decide whether or not you want to make it.
Yeah.
But
it starts with the idea, and then it goes to how do I make that entertaining.
Right, but for security, you said it wasn't entertaining.
Yeah.
That was your whole point. But then, what was the whole point?
I didn't think so. I didn't think it was entertaining.
Okay. What was your vision when you were making it in terms of? I would want people to watch it and then take XYZ things away from it.
So when you are sitting, and I used to sit with these guys for 3-4 hours at a time. When you're sitting there in a sand lot or parking lot or whatever it is, you've got your chair, they've got their chair just like this, and you can't move. And so the camera was treated almost like a third security guard, just watching the two of them. Now, what I wanted to do was to kind of put people in their shoes. And the feedback I got from the film festivals that we were featured in or won at, that's exactly what they said. They said, I felt like a security guard. Yeah. Okay. Now, that's not entertaining, but it changed their perspective. I think also, short films have a very different responsibility than, or I think short films serve a different purpose than feature films, in a sense. And if you're going to experiment, that's where I would experiment, rather than with a feature.
So that's another good point that I definitely want to discuss with you. So this is an observation, and correct me if I'm wrong. Films which are short films, or I would say non-feature films, because there's a lot of different ways you can actually define them. What is your thought process, or typically how do you go about saying, okay, this is a film that I'm making specifically for a film festival versus a big release or an online platform, etc.?
I don't think I have enough experience to answer that question, to be honest.
So let's go back and maybe put examples to it. So Beneath the Sea of Lights versus a security, how would you gauge your release for the two?
I think it always comes down to the idea.
Okay.
Short films, in a sense, this was explained to me really simply.
Okay.
Any story, it's the difference between a joke and a story. A joke has a setup and a punchline, and a story has a beginning, middle, and an end. Security was a very long setup and a punchline, whereas Beneath the Sea of Lights, or stories that I'm working on now, very clear beginning, middle, end, and your act breaks are clear. If your act breaks are clear when you're thinking about the film, probably on to be a longer form.
The length of the film.
Yeah, for me, it's never about the release. It's just about what. There's so many stories out there. I mean, it could be we've done 60-second documentaries and we've done 90-minute films. It's always about the story and what length or what duration suits the story best and what format. Some character ideas I've had are much more suited for TV than for film. I think if you try to make a film into a TV show, unless you really know what you're doing, you can fall flat, and vice versa. If you try to cram all that information, imagine they tried to make Breaking Bad into a movie, you miss out on so much.
That's true. That's true.
So it's the same thing. I always think with the character and the story in mind, what suits what format suits the story.
So last question, what next for Beneath the Sea of Lights? When will we see it?
So we've submitted to 3 of, I think, the 5 best film festivals in the world. Okay. And we start hearing back from them December, January, February. Okay. Right now we're finalizing the film. We're also screening for a major online distributor. Okay. And let's see where it goes. The better.
That's good. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And look forward to watching all your films.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Neel Kumar, and if you've enjoyed our chat, please like, share, and subscribe to Popcorn Pixel, and there are a lot more candid conversations coming soon.